I'm Patrick Watson, I'm an astrologer, and you're watching Big Fat Astrovlog. And today I'm going to be delivering a monthly horoscope for all Aquarius risings out there for the month of August 2018. And I'm not talking about Aquarius suns, I'm talking about Aquarius risings. So this horoscope only applies to you if the tropical sign of Aquarius was rising on the eastern horizon of the time and place you were born. So if you're not sure what rising sign you have, you need your birth date, birth time, very important, and birthplace. Go to www.astro.com, put in your chart details, and you should be able to find out what sign was rising at the time and place of your birth. So, the way that I can tell generally what kinds of things we might be able to expect for Aquarius risings is because of whole sign houses. The relationship that each sign has to the ascending sign, in this case Aquarius, tells us what area of life each sign pertains to. These are also called the house topics, the houses. So the first house is about these things, and you can see I've written out some general significations for each of the 12 houses. And in the inner ring here, I have all of the glyphs for all the planets, and I have a key here in case you don't know what those all mean. I've shown you what glyph corresponds with which planet, as well as one word that kind of sums up what each planet or celestial object kind of does in the zodiac. And then, of course, the outer rim is the zodiac itself. So, the first thing that is kind of important about August 2018 is that there is actually a solar eclipse. We can see this is the sun glyph here, this orange sun, and then we can see this little blue moon glyph here. So these are together at the same degree in Leo, right? They would normally just be a new moon together, but because of their proximity to their intersecting point, the north node, that indicates that it's going to be a solar eclipse. So what this means is that this is going to be the beginning of an approximately 12-month period that revolves around the topics of the 7th house. This is happening in your 7th house. So some common topics of the 7th house include relationships, the notion of compromises, and sometimes your frenemies. Now, if you're not currently in a relationship, it could be the beginning of a new relationship. If you're in a relationship currently, it could mean, that it potentially ends, but it also potentially signifies, like, I don't know, taking your relationship to the next level, in any case, that's what the eclipse sort of seems to signify. And just by itself, it doesn't look terribly bad, because the eclipse is only 4 degrees away from Mercury, which isn't always bad, just it depends. And then it's square Jupiter, which even squares to Venus and Jupiter aren't that bad. So it's still kind of giving its 2 cents into what this is about. So let's talk a little bit about Mercury retrograde. So we start off the month with Mercury retrograde. So we may generally be able to expect some of the kind of stereotypical things associated with Mercury retrograde, such as, communication going awry, schedule mix-ups, misstatements, having to do things over and over again, having to revisit old issues, losing things, breaking things. It's kind of a meme at this point, about Mercury retrograde and these kinds of effects. But what I've noticed with Mercury retrogrades is they often introduce kind of an idea or a potentiality, a possibility, an option that you kind of have to agonize over, and you're kind of vacillating, going back and forth between, whether you should pursue this thing or not, or which one to pursue. Those are often the kinds of questions I get from clients during Mercury retrogrades. Like, it's always kind of, this question of evaluating between 2 options. So Mercury, of course, is the thinker and the counter and the waffler, so it makes it a sense, when that planet is kind of more prominent in the sky, as it is when it's retrograde, to be doing that. But for you, it's specifically going retrograde in your 7th house. So this indicates some sort of question is being introduced relative to topics of the 7th. So thinking about perhaps the kinds of questions that may come up might include, like, what's happening in our relationship? Is this relationship going well? Is this relationship going badly? What other things can be, like, it'll be kind of a time of kind of reevaluation and reflecting on kind of what's going on. And it may also introduce something kind of new and unexpected into the equation with your partner, especially in regards to communication, keeping things from each other, or misinterpreting what the other person says, that sort of thing. But the other thing that kind of is at play with this Mercury retrograde is the square to Jupiter, which is happening in the 10th. And the conventional interpretation of Jupiter in the 10th is the expansion of opportunities and wealth and possibilities in the realm of one's career and with one's boss and in their public reputation. So something about this notion of Jupiter in the 10th, of having luck and success in your career, is somehow figuring in potentially a challenging way into your internal deliberations about your relationship. And it's difficult to say exactly how that will manifest until, it finally does. But that's what I can kind of see. I can kind of see the bare bones of it. I'd imagine it could be something like, your partner potentially being like resentful or something about your success at work, and maybe like talking to people behind your back about it, and then you find out about it, and then that sort of gets you thinking, you talking, and like then you have this row about communication in your relationship. It could be something like that. I'm not saying that's exactly what's going to happen to you, but it's following this Jupiter Mercury square dynamic. But I should say that even though you kind of go back and forth over it, as Mercury goes backward in its contemplation and concentration on these degrees in the 7th, that ultimately that solar eclipse on August 11th kind of seals the deal either way. Eclipses tend to make things more permanent, whereas Mercury loves to keep things up in the air and keep things unsettled. So that eclipse should kind of make things kind of gravitate towards a certain direction, regardless of what your internal deliberations are about it. So that's the eclipse and the Mercury retrograde and the square to Jupiter. The other thing that I thought you should know is at the beginning of August, Venus is in late Virgo, which is your 8th house. So the conventional interpretation of Venus going through the 8th house is like potentially being able to benefit from the money of others, but especially potentially at someone's expense or in a slightly shady or corrupt manner. And so that's been going on for July, you being shady. And then Venus does enter Libra on August 7th. So most of August, Venus is in Libra, its own sign, which is really good. And it's going through your 9th house of travel and religion and college and higher education, politics, culture, philosophy, that kind of thing. So Venus, the conventional interpretation of Venus going through the 9th is something like, it sweetens one's experience with that which is foreign. If you take any trips in this time to foreign places, you may find you're very well received and that you have a really, really nice time. This can be a great way to connect with other people. It may also be a time in which you are more gracious with respect to cultural differences or ideological differences with people. It may be a time when you're more willing to, try to go for peace more than you're going to go for going to war necessarily. Although I shouldn't say that because Mars is going retrograde around your ascendant, but we'll talk about that next. So that's what you should know about Venus, is that it's making this shift from your 8th house to your 9th house. Venus is making its way to its retrograde station, but we'll talk about that another month. So let's take a look at Mars. At the beginning of the month of August, Mars is still retrograde in Aquarius, where it's been for ages now, seemingly a few months. And since it's in your 1st house, I would say that Mars kind of brings antagonism and conflicts and sometimes drive and energy and risk-taking into the equation. So it kind of does that wherever it goes in the zodiac. But when it goes retrograde and really concentrates on those degrees, it can sometimes leave a mark. Can leave a burn or a scar. And since it's in your first house of self and appearance and your outlook, this might not have been the easiest time for you, especially in terms of, like, maybe you've been coming off really, really harshly towards other people without even necessarily meaning it. Maybe just the way you're appearing to people is more like Mars, and people might be kind of more intimidated by you lately. It can also mean, like, literally, you can get, like, scars and burns. That's kind of the sort of classic thing that Mars kind of does, is it gives you cuts and bruises and burns, because it has associations with cutting and with heat and things like that. So, with Mars going over potentially your ascendant, the degree of your ascendant, if your ascendant fell within those degrees, that's what it's been kind of doing. And but the interesting thing about what Mars is doing in August is it's retrograde and it moves into the previous sign of Capricorn. So briefly, while Mars is retrograde, it goes from your first house into your 12th house for a short while, about a month. And it stations direct there on August 28th. You can see it just turned from red to black there. So that shows that Mars stationed direct on that day, August 28th. So the movement from the 1st to the 12th shows that the sort of martial energy, I suppose you could say, with I hate that word, energy. I mean, it's not energy, but you know what I mean. Like, the nature of Mars is such that it's coincident with events associated with the 12th house instead of the 1st. So the 12th house is like rivalries and seclusion and figures who you aren't necessarily aware of, like strangers, stalkers, that kind of thing. So Mars going there can mean antagonism or conflicts or divisions with strangers, like getting into altercations with people you don't even know, and being potentially vulnerable to the schemes of others, especially people who have it out for you, people who have beef with you. This might be a time when people kind of maybe get beef with you. So that's something to look forward to. But don't worry, it's all it'll all be ending though by the end of September, once it moves back into Aquarius and moves on. The direct station really isn't that bad. It's going to be the beginning of Mars kind of getting over and moving past the battles of its time in Aquarius. So ultimately, it's a good thing for us all that Mars is deciding finally to, just get on with it. Just go, transit regularly for a while. 2 days before the Mars direct station, there is a full moon at 3 degrees Pisces. So you can see the sun's at 3 degrees of Virgo, and the moon is at the opposite sign at 3 degrees of Pisces. So this means this will be like a 2-week focus on notions of the second house. That's where the moon is lighting up your chart. So the second house is money, your stuff, your material values, your possessions, what you take for granted. You can kind of get an idea of what this might be about by looking back in the ephemeris at when the sun was in Virgo opposite the moon in Pisces. It happens every year, either in late August or sometime in September. So take a look back and see kind of like how that theme of money or things might have come up before. It's difficult to always remember, but, give it a shot. So that is all I have to say about August 2018. I hope you enjoyed this horoscope. If you did, please give it a like, give it a nice comment and a share. And if you want to continue to see content like this for your rising sign for next month, make sure you become a supporter of mine on Patreon. Even just $1 from you makes it so worth it for me. I really, really appreciate that. So if you're interested in seeing what I would have to say about your chart specifically, I do offer readings and services, so please go to my website, www.bigfatastro.com, and go to my services tab for more information about that. And if you want to do it on a budget, I also am selling my automated report, the Big Fat Astro Natal Horoscope Report. You just put in your chart details after you pay $20, and you get this automatically generated report by me. I read out all the interpretations for all the planets and all the signs and houses and aspects, so that's worth it. And I hope you have a great August 2018, and I would love to hear about what happens to you, within the context of what I said might happen. And we will we'll do this again. I'll see you next time. Bye.